Welcome to a special edition of The Voice of Resistance. I'm Randall Terry. We created a series called What Would Muhammad Do? A serial documentary on the life of Muhammad and his teachings regarding Islam and the entire world. Tonight's episode is the Battle of Badr. This was the seminal turning point in Muhammad's life, where he went from being a peaceful preacher to a warlord. The facts are clear. We give you the Battle of Badr. To understand Islam and its impact on the world, we need to investigate the words of Muhammad and study his life. Then, look at the people who most closely follow his words and his example, including Islamic terrorists. Muhammad was an Arab, born in 570 AD in the city of Mecca on the Arabian Peninsula. His mother's name was Amina, his father's name Abdullah. His father died while his mother was still pregnant. When he was 6 years old, his mother died. He lived with his grandfather for 2 years, and then his grandfather died. At 8 years old, Muhammad was an orphan. His uncle, Abu Talib, took him in and raised him. In his 20s, he worked for a woman named Khadija. She was older than him, wealthy, and respected. Khadija proposed marriage to Muhammad, saying that he was hardworking and that his clan spoke highly of him. They married when he was 25. They had 7 children, 3 boys and 4 girls. All of his sons died in childhood. All of his daughters lived to adulthood. The most famous was Fatima. In his 30s, every year he secluded himself in a cave for a month to pray to the God of Abraham. When he was 40, Muhammad said he began to have visions. Ibn Ishaq reports,
"When it was the night on which God honored him with his mission, Gabriel brought him the command of God."
Muhammad said,
"The angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it anymore. He then released me and again asked me to read, and I replied, I do not know how to read."
This happened 3 times, and on the 3rd time, Muhammad said Gabriel told him to recite.
"Read in the name of your Lord, who has created man from a clot. Recite, and your Lord is the most generous."
He went to his wife and told her what happened. He was afraid he was going crazy or had seen a demon. She assured him he was not. Khadija was the first person to accept Muhammad's new religion, Islam. Muhammad's 10-year-old cousin, Ali, was the first male to accept Islam. Muhammad soon declared Ali his heir and later gave Ali his daughter Fatima as his wife, which has enormous impact in Muslim history. For the first 3 years, Muhammad shared his message secretly with relatives or trusted friends. After 3 years, Muhammad said that the angel Gabriel told him to preach his message publicly, beginning with his clan. He called his relatives together.
"I am a warner to you in the face of a terrible doom. I summon you to God and warn you of his punishment. Save yourself from hellfire."
His uncle Lahab cursed him.
"Damn you! May your hands perish this day. Did you only bring us together for this?"
Muhammad's troubles began. His message enraged the pagan leaders. He endured insults and persecution. But because Muhammad's uncle, Abu Talib, was the head of his clan and a very powerful man in Mecca, Muhammad preached under his uncle's protection. The leaders of Mecca were so outraged at Muhammad's message They sought his uncle's permission to kill him.
Your nephew has cursed our gods, insulted our religion, mocked our way of life, and accused our forefathers of error. Either you must stop him or let us get at him to kill him.
Abu Talib repeatedly said no, in spite of the growing tension. Mecca was home to hundreds of idols, including the Kaaba, the black stone they believed fell from the sky. Pagans came from hundreds of miles to worship these idols. Muhammad's condemnation of idolatry was a threat to Mecca's prestige and a threat to the wealthy and the powerful. On one occasion, some of the elders were mocking Muhammad while he prayed. They instigated a man named Uqba to put sheep intestines on Muhammad's back while he was bowed down in prayer. Muhammad's daughter, Fatima, came and took the guts off his back. Muhammad rose and cursed the leaders who stood by laughing.
O Allah, punish Abu Jahl, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, Shaybah ibn Rabi'ah, Al-Walid ibn Utbah, Umayr ibn Khalaf, and Uqba ibn al-Mu'ayt.
That curse plays a huge role in Muhammad's story. I'll be right back. Friend, continue watching the Battle of Badr. Muhammad then received two severe personal blows. His uncle and protector, Abu Talib, and his wife Khadijah both died within weeks of each other. Abu Talib's death was catastrophic for Muhammad. Ibn Ishaq said,
With the death of Abu Talib, he lost his strength and stay in his personal life and the defense and protection against his tribe. The Quraysh began to treat him in an offensive way which they would not have dared to follow in his uncle's lifetime.
With Muhammad's protector dead, he was in danger. He was ready to move to any city that would embrace him as a prophet and protect him and his followers with their swords. After 10 years of preaching, Muhammad only had about 200 converts. So for the next 2 years, he spoke to every tribe that arrived in Mecca on pilgrimage, saying,
I am God's messenger to you, commanding you to worship God, to cast off whatever idols you worship other than Him, to believe in me and the truth of my message, and to defend me so that I may make manifest the message of God I have been sent to convey.
Finally, a small group of men from Medina responded to him. They agreed to follow his new religion and allow him to settle disputes among them. Then, a second larger group of men came from Medina, including some of their leaders, who pledged to follow Muhammad's new religion and to defend him and his followers with the sword if they would relocate to Medina. Muhammad ordered his followers to emigrate to Medina, some 300 miles to the north. Every Muslim left Mecca for Medina, with the exception of Muhammad, his cousin Ali, a few Muslim women, and his father-in-law, Abu Bakr, the father of Muhammad's child bride, Aisha, who was about 8 years old at that time. As the Muslims were leaving, Meccan leaders grew fearful that Muhammad might use his new position of strength in Medina to launch an attack against them. So, a plot was conceived to kill Muhammad before he left. Muhammad learned of their plans, and he and Abu Bakr escaped to a cave outside the city. Ultimately, Muhammad, Abu Bakr, Ali, and the remaining Muslim women reached Medina in safety. This event is a key scene in the Muslim religion. Muhammad and Abu Bakr were hiding in a cave for days. Search parties were looking for Muhammad to kill him. Food and camels were snuck out to them. Guides were hired to lead them to Medina. This departure from Mecca actually begins the Muslim calendar. It's called the Hijrah. If the story ended here, Muhammad preaching in Mecca, the Muslims being persecuted, then fleeing to another city to practice their religion, if that was the end, the claim that Islam is a religion of peace and that Muhammad was a man of peace would be true. This story would have been like many stories of persecuted religious minorities emigrating. But that's not the end with Muhammad. As the Meccans feared, in Medina, Muhammad became a leader of jihad, all-out war. Once the Muslims got settled in Medina, Muhammad sent some of his men on a mission. The mission was to steal a Meccan caravan during a holy month. Muhammad's men found the caravan and stole it. In the process, they killed one of the men leading it and took 2 hostages. One other man escaped back to Mecca. Muhammad's men brought all the stolen goods and hostages back to him and told him what they did. Muhammad rebuked them.
I did not order you to kill anyone in the sacred month.
Muhammad's men were terrified. They had breached a long-held religious tradition. Do not shed blood in a holy month. Gossip and grumbling raced through Medina and Mecca because Muhammad's men murdered during the sacred month. Then, Muhammad said he got a revelation from God.
They ask you about the sacred month, about fighting therein. Say, fighting therein is great sin. But averting people from the way of Allah and disbelief in Him, and preventing access to the sacred mosque, and the expulsion of its people from there are greater evil in the sight of Allah. Tumult and oppression are worse than slaughter.
Don't go away. And we continue with the Battle of Badr. Muhammad said what the Meccans did by driving the Muslims out of Mecca was worse than murdering a man in the sacred month. Muhammad took the stolen property, then extorted money from the Meccans to free the hostages. There was no justice for the murdered man. Muhammad then learned that a huge Meccan caravan with over 30 armed guards was traveling from Syria, dwarfing the caravan they stole earlier. He told his men,
This caravan belongs to Quraysh and will carry much wealth. Attack it. God may present it to you.
Muhammad himself led the expedition. This was an act of war. His biographers say,
The men got ready, some pleased, the others apprehensive. They did not know the messenger of God would make war.
Some of his followers would not even go out with him. After more than a decade preaching in Mecca and over a year of preaching in Medina, his followers did not know that Muhammad would make war. They thought he was a man of peace, that Islam would be spread by peaceful preaching. Up till then, that was true. But everything was about to change. Ibn Kathir states,
This was the first battle pitting his men against his enemies.
the battle took place at a small desert oasis named Badr. The story of the Battle of Badr is told over and over again in mosques across the world. As we'll see, this battle was the turning point where Muhammad began using force to spread his religion. The Battle of Badr is a foundational story in the hearts and minds of terrorists. The Meccans learned of Muhammad's plans to steal their caravan and quickly marshaled an army to protect it. They had around 1,000 men and 200 horses for their cavalry. Many of the leaders of Mecca who had mocked Muhammad went out to fight. Muhammad had just over 300 men, 70 camels, and only 2 horses. Muhammad's men did not come out to fight an army. They came to steal a wealthy caravan. But the caravan had escaped, and now Muhammad's men faced an army triple their size. Muhammad did something brand new. He incited his men to war. Muslims call it jihad, by promising them if they died in battle, they would go to paradise.
By God, in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad, no man will be slain this day fighting against them with steadfast courage, advancing, not retreating, but God will cause him to enter paradise.
Prior to this moment, Muhammad never made a connection between fighting and dying in jihad and getting paradise as the reward. Prior to this, heaven came by believing in his message. The promise of gaining paradise through death in battle was new and proved highly successful. A man named Umayyar said,
Fine. Is there nothing between me and my entering paradise, save to be killed by these men? He seized his sword and fought against them till he was slain.
A man named Umayyar said,
O Apostle of God, what makes the Lord laugh with joy at his servant?
Muhammad answered,
When he plunges into the midst of the enemy without mail.
Mail, or chain link armor, was what they wore to protect themselves in battle.
So off drew off the mail coat that was on him and threw it away. Then he seized his sword and fought the enemy till he was slain.
Muhammad said that what makes God laugh with joy is a man who throws away his armor and throws away his life as he dies fighting those who oppose Muhammad. This history inspires today's atrocities. Those men are hailed as heroes, and they're imitated by Islamic terrorists. The Battle of Badr raged. Muhammad's men fought fiercely and won. 300 Muslims routed 1,000 Meccans. 70 Meccans were killed. 70 were taken as hostages. The rest fled back to Mecca. Only 14 Muslims were killed and none were taken hostage. The Battle of Badr was the turning point for Muhammad and the Muslims. They viewed this victory as a miraculous sign from Allah Himself that Muhammad was the prophet of Allah.
And Allah has already made you victorious at Badr when you were a weak little force. And here has already been a sign for you in the two armies that met.
All but one of the elders that Muhammad cursed years earlier in Mecca died in battle at Badr. This was yet another sign to Muhammad's followers that he was Allah's apostle. Their dead bodies were thrown into a dried out well that was filled with refuse. Muhammad stood over their dead bodies, taunting them.
O people of the well, you were evil fellow tribesmen to your prophet. Have you found what your Lord promised you to be true? For I have found what my Lord promised me to be true.
The leader of Muhammad's enemies in Mecca, Abu Jahl, was killed in battle. As he was dying, his head was cut off and brought to Muhammad. Muhammad bowed down to the ground, saying,
Praise be to God.
The Hadith records,
The Prophet and his companions used to forgive the pagans and the people of Scripture as Allah had ordered them, and they used to put up with their mischief with patience. So the Prophet used to stick to the principle of forgiveness for them as long as Allah ordered him to do so, till Allah permitted fighting them.
One more segment after this break. And now the conclusion of the Battle of Badr. Muhammad used to forgive those who did not believe in him until Allah permitted fighting them. The hadith finishes.
So when Allah's apostle fought the battle of Badr and Allah killed the nobles of Quraysh infidels through him, many pagans became Muslims.
Before Badr, Muhammad and his companions forgave those who did not believe. At Badr, Allah permitted fighting the unbelievers. At Badr, Muslims claim Allah killed the unbelievers through Muhammad and his men. This is the story that terrorists follow with zeal. There's no way to overemphasize how critical the victory at Badr was to Muhammad. To this very day, Muslim children and adults are told that the Battle of Badr was the victory of truth over error. It was a miraculous outcome that testified that Muhammad was Allah's prophet and confirmed his message. From Badr forward, it redefined Muhammad and his message. All Muslims who died in jihad were then referred to as martyrs who go to paradise. Muhammad told a mother grieving her son's death at Badr,
Have you gone crazy? There are 8 gardens there, and your son has earned the very highest of paradise.
Dozens of poems were written eulogizing those who fought and died at Badr. Some Muslims at Badr said that some of the Meccans' heads would fall off before they were struck with a human sword. Muhammad seized on this and said that Gabriel and other angels cut off the heads of some of the Meccans. Muhammad knew that this battle raised him to a new status. His enemies feared him more than ever. He compared his victory at Badr to God destroying Pharaoh's army in the Red Sea. Badr marked the end of Muhammad's peaceful preaching and the beginning of jihad, all-out war against unbelievers, and their conversion at the point of a sword, or their demise. After Badr, Muhammad said Gabriel gave him chapter 8 of the Quran, one of the new revelations that called for war, not forgiveness, against those who did not believe in Muhammad.
When your Lord revealed to the angels, I am with you, therefore make firm those who believe. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. That is because they opposed Allah and His Messenger. Who opposeth Allah and His Messenger, for him, lo, Allah is severe in punishment.
Moreover, Muhammad said Allah threatened His own followers with hell if they retreated in battle.
O you who believe, when you meet those who disbelieve marching for war, then turn not your backs to them, and whoever shall turn his back to them on that day, then he indeed becomes deserving of Allah's wrath, and his abode is hell, and an evil destination shall it be.
This is how Muhammad motivated his men to fight. He promised them paradise if they died and threatened them with hell if they retreated. What happened at Badr in 624 AD is foundational to Islam and fuels Islamic terrorism across the world today. If you are a Muslim and some of this is new to you, we encourage you, research this material for yourself. Muslim terrorists believe that they can relive this story and repeat Muhammad's victory against overwhelming odds and defeat non-Muslim armies and religions and establish Islam just as Muhammad did with the sword. And if they die when they're killing non-Muslims, they cling to the notion that they will awake in paradise because this is what Muhammad promised them. Friend, Muhammad, as you heard, viewed this as the seminal turning point, like the parting of the Red Sea. If you want to learn more about Muhammad and Islam, I urge you, get the entire 20 episodes, call the number you see on the screen, or you can get just the 90-minute documentary, Muhammad in His Own Words, for a gift of any size, even a penny. If you want to understand Islam and Islamic terrorism, this is the series for you.